Welcome back, everyone. I wanted to start this episode with a correction. In Music Mechanics 4, The Nature of Sound Part 4, subscriber JM mentioned in the comments it's pronounced timbre. I looked it up and son of a gun, he's right, so thank you, JM. I can't believe it's been this many years and nobody's corrected me. Just goes to show there's always something to learn. In this episode, we're going to discuss how to notate omitted chord factors and we'll discuss modes. On a personal note, this is one of the most important topics in this series, so bear with me, you'll see why it's so important in the following episodes. When I went to college, I was mystified about modes and why I needed to know them, but once you wrap your head around it, you'll see exactly why they're so useful. So let's get started. In the last episode, we discussed add chords where notes other than chord factors are added to a chord. It's also possible to do the opposite, namely to omit chord factors in a chord. To omit a particular chord factor, write the word omit to the right of the chord symbol followed by the name of the chord factor you wish to omit. For example, if you wish to write an E-flat dominant 7th without the 5th, write E-flat 7, omit 5. Let's hear how these sound. You can omit any chord factor, but the 5th is the most commonly omitted since in most chords it doesn't add anything to help identify the unique characteristics of a chord. We'll also discover additional reasons for omitting the 5th when we begin covering extensions. Modes originated from the music traditions of Greece. They are referred to as a type of scale by most music theorists. The word ethos was coined by the Greeks to describe how music and musical scales can have an effect on conduct, emotions, and ethics. Perhaps you've noticed how the major scale has a happy and bright sound while a natural minor scale has a sadder, darker sound. The idea that listening extensively to music written with a natural minor scale may cause sadness is similar to the concept of ethos. Mode names came from the differing tribes of Greece, each mode supposedly a reflection of the disposition of that tribe. And in fact, if we look at maps of the Mediterranean region from that time period, we see names that seem to reflect this. The 7 modes in common use today are the Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. If we look at this map of the Mediterranean, we see Ionia and Phrygia. If we move the map over, we can also see the Ionian Sea. This map demonstrates the Dorian, Ionian, and Aeolian immigration. This map demonstrates Lydia, and this map demonstrates Locris along with Ionia and Lydia. At least one name has survived from that period, the Ionian Sea. It's important to note that the modes the early Greeks used are not the same as the modes we currently use, even though they have the same names. Our current modes evolved from medieval and Renaissance music written before 1600 and were especially common in the church in the form of Gregorian chant, which is why these modes are occasionally referred to as church modes. This early music was modal, created from a mode, and the earliest music was often monophonic or consisting of a single melody line only. Secular music during this time also contained elements of polyphony, or more than one melody line sounding simultaneously. Initially, polyphonic music was frowned upon by the church since they disliked the idea of secular music influencing sacred music, and they also believed the added harmony obscured the clarity of the words being sung. Nonetheless, polyphony eventually began to make its way into sacred music. Our current understanding of harmony most likely began to evolve during this period. So what is a mode? As I stated earlier, they are referred to as a scale by most music theorists. However, for the purposes of this program, we will refer to a mode as a sequential reordering of the pitch classes of a particular scale. What does this mean? Well, a sequential reordering is the reordering of the notes of a scale in order, one after the other. Pitch class means we can use the notes of that scale in any octave. To demonstrate this concept, let's look at an E-flat major scale. Here's the E-flat major scale, which consists of E-flat, F, G, A-flat, B-flat, C, D, and E-flat. If we use only the notes in the scale but reorder them, starting on the second scale degree of the E-flat major scale and, using only the notes of the E-flat major scale, ascend stepwise up the scale until we reach an octave higher than the second scale degree, which is the same pitch class, we create the Dorian mode. This is how we created F Dorian, and this is how it sounds. We used only the notes of the E-flat major scale but reordered them, starting on the second scale degree of the E-flat major scale and using only the notes of the E-flat major scale, ascended stepwise up the scale until we reached an octave higher than the second scale degree, which is the same pitch class, to create the Dorian mode. We'll continue this idea by starting on the third scale degree of the E-flat major scale, G. So we start on the third scale degree of the E-flat major scale, G, And again, using only the notes of the E-flat major scale, ascend stepwise up the scale until we reach an octave higher than the third scale degree to create the Phrygian mode. Notice the E-flat major scale has an E-flat, A-flat, and B-flat. G Phrygian as well has an E-flat, A-flat, and B-flat. Here's how this sounds. The next mode is Lydian, and we can create this mode by starting on the fourth degree of the E-flat major scale, A-flat, and continue on up the E-flat major scale until we reach an octave higher than that A-flat. To create the B-flat Mixolydian mode, we start on the fifth scale degree of the E-flat major scale, which is B-flat, and continue on up the E-flat major scale until we reach an octave higher than this B-flat. Next up is the Aeolian mode, which starts on the sixth degree of the E-flat major scale, C. We ascend stepwise up the E-flat major scale until we get to the octave higher of that C. The next mode is the Locrian mode, which can be created by starting on the seventh scale degree of the E-flat major scale, D. Again, we ascend stepwise up the E-flat major scale until we arrive at the octave higher than this D. An additional mode is the Ionian mode, but you already know it. It's synonymous with the major scale, or in other words, you create it by starting on the first scale degree of the E-flat major scale and ascend stepwise until you arrive at the first an octave higher. The modes in order then are the Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian modes. Let's hear how these sound. Notice there are only 7 modes. This is because a major scale has only 7 different scale degrees. Once you get to the octave, the Ionian mode begins again an octave higher. The first scale degree of a mode is referred to as a final, but can also be called the tonic in the same way you can refer to the first scale degree of the major scale. The term final is only used with modes and is not very common. As you know, the interval formula for a major scale is whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Since every major scale uses this formula, modes can be created from any major scale. For example, here are the modes from the G major scale. Notice each mode consists of natural notes only except for an F sharp. This is because the G major scale has an F sharp, so every mode from the G major scale will also contain an F sharp. Hey, thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like and leave a comment below if you have any questions. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you like the music you've been listening to, please be sure to check out my friend Leslie Letven Bixler's album, Porcupine, at this link.